Hello and welcome to this week's news bulletin from the Christian Institute. The Western media are failing to report the widespread slaughter and persecution of Christians overseas, according to a Tory councillor. On the Conservative Home blog, Alistair Thompson comments that the lack of coverage underlines a systematic failure to stand up for Christians who over the last decade have faced ethnic cleansing on an unimaginable scale. Mr. Thompson highlighted figures from the Centre for the Study of Global Christianity, showing that an average of 100,000 Christians have been murdered every year over the past decade. He says events such as the recent killings at a wedding in Egypt are no longer seen as news by the liberal establishment, and the lack of reporting underlines, at best, a nervousness in the West to condemn them in a Muslim country. Mr. Thompson is also critical that despite the avalanche of attacks against Christians, politicians both here in the US and EU remain almost completely silent in their reaction. It's been reported that David Cameron declined an invitation to attend the Gay magazine's awards ceremony because he knew his push to redefine marriage was unpopular. Daily Mail columnist Andrew Pearce said that instead of going to the Attitude magazine event to collect a Politician of the Year award, the Prime Minister said he was too busy. Mr. Pearce added that whilst publicly supporting gay marriage, David Cameron has told advisers privately that the way it was implemented was one of the biggest political mistakes he has ever made because of the uproar it unleashed. He continued that Downing Street decided not to send a replacement to accept the award, which suggests the Prime Minister is only too aware his gay marriage policy has served as a recruiting agent for UKIP. Attitude organisers rearranged their ceremony, with Ed Miliband collecting an award on behalf of everyone who had voted for gay marriage. Meanwhile, in France, mayors will be forced to perform same-sex marriages against their religious beliefs, a court has ruled. Mayors who refuse to do so could face up to 5 years in prison. When the gay marriage law was introduced earlier this year, there was no conscience clause included to protect those who don't want to perform such ceremonies. A group of mayors got together to appeal against the new legislation, saying the lack of a conscience opt-out was unconstitutional. But the Constitutional Council, the highest court in France, rejected their claims. A spokesman for the group said they are prepared to go to the European Court of Human Rights over the issue, commenting, "We are local elected representatives and we have a right to express the diversity of opinion in French society." Singer Charlotte Church has spoken out against the pressure on young female pop stars to sell themselves as sex objects during a lecture for BBC Six Music. She said record producers are encouraging young singers to present themselves as hypersexualised, unrealistic, cartoonish, as objects, reducing female sexuality to a prize you can win. Miss Church, now 27, talked about her own past experience of being pressurised into wearing more and more revealing outfits by industry bosses. She said, "I felt deeply uncomfortable about the whole thing, but I was often reminded by record label executives just whose money was being spent." Andrew Hill, a professor of medical psychology, warns that sexualised images have a powerful influence on children to conform, saying there's a tendency for us to look at others and compare our adequacy and to look to how we might change and improve ourselves. It's very important for adolescents. The US Air Force Academy is considering dropping the phrase, "So help me God," from its honour pledge. It follows a complaint by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which campaigns for religious neutrality in the forces. Mikey Weinstein, who heads the organisation, said, "Christianity is given priority at the Academy, and those espousing such a belief system receive favourable treatment." Mr. Weinstein wants the reference to God to be removed from the text for all graduates. The Academy's Honour Review Committee met this week in response to the complaint and said they considered a range of options, but cautioned that removing this voluntary affirmation expresses hostility toward religion. Tony Perkins, president of the Family Research Council, is also concerned that the underlying issue has nothing to do with accommodating those who don't believe in God. He said that already exists. No one is forced to say this. This is about imposing an atheistic view on everyone so there can be no recognition of God. Staying in America, and a couple who are being sued for refusing to rent out their venue for a gay wedding are launching a parallel legal challenge to protect their rights. Dick and Betty Ogard, who own the Gort's House Art Gallery, have filed a lawsuit against the Iowa Civil Rights Commission after a gay couple complained that they had been discriminated against because of their sexual orientation. But Mr. and Mrs. Ogard have hit back, saying that if the commission forces them to go against their religious beliefs and host gay weddings in their gallery, it would be a violation of the Iowa Civil Rights Act. Emily Hardman, a spokeswoman for the Beckett Fund, which is backing the Ogard's legal case, said, "This gallery is a way the Ogdards express their faith, and in a free and diverse society, no one should be forced into something that violates their faith." And finally, a man who stole a 200-year-old Bible from a church back in 1971 has decided to return it. Holy Trinity Church in Hastings received an anonymous package containing the Bible, which had been posted in Germany. There was also a note from a man confessing his transgression and saying that he wanted to clear his conscience. The German man said he had been taking lessons in the church and took the Bible in an attempt to improve his English. But he added, "This Bible always brought me a guilty conscience. I was too cowardly to hand it over personally. I deeply regret what I did and can only hope this Bible finds its rightful home again." Church treasurer Simon Scott, who opened the package, said, "I think he's a God-fearing chap, and this was his attempt at a confession. It must have weighed very heavily on his mind." Mr. Scott says the church is glad to have their Bible back. Well, that's all for this week. For more information and regular updates on all of our stories, plus much more, visit our website at christian.org.uk. Until next time, goodbye.